The call came on a rainy Thursday morning in late October. I was sitting alone at my kitchen table, nursing a cup of black coffee and watching the wind bend the corn stalks across the road. Retirement had given me plenty of quiet mornings, but after my wife Martha passed 3 years ago, quiet wasn't always a good thing. Most days the house felt too big, too empty. The old wall clock ticked steadily above the stove while rain tapped against the window. Then the phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it. Lord knows there are enough robocalls these days. But something made me pick up. Hello. There was a brief pause. Then an older man's voice answered. Tom Walker. Speaking. Another pause. This is Walter Jenkins. The name sounded familiar, though I couldn't place it. I'm sorry, I said. Walter who? The postmaster from Willow Creek. My stomach tightened. Willow Creek. I hadn't heard that town's name in years. The little farming town where I grew up. The place I'd spent most of my childhood before life carried me elsewhere. Well, I'll be darned, I said. Walter chuckled softly. Been a long time, Tom. Sure has. Then his tone changed. And suddenly, I knew this wasn't a social call. I hope I'm not bothering you, Walter said. Not at all. The rain grew heavier outside. I've got something that belongs to your family. I frowned. My family. That's right. What is it? Walter hesitated. The kind of hesitation that tells you whatever comes next matters. A letter. I blinked. A letter? Yes, sir. What about it? It's been sitting in my possession for 45 years. For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. 45 years. That's correct. I sat up straighter. My coffee suddenly forgotten. How does something like that happen? Walter let out a long sigh. That's a story all by itself. The room felt strangely quiet. Even the rain seemed to fade into the background. Then Walter said something that made my heart skip. The letter was written by your grandfather. I froze. Samuel Walker, a name nobody in my family ever talked about. A man who disappeared before I turned 10. A man whose memory seemed buried long ago. At least, that's what I'd always believed. Growing up, nobody wanted to discuss Grandpa Samuel. If I asked questions, conversations ended. My father would suddenly find something else to do. My grandmother would stare out the window. Even neighbors avoided the topic. All I ever knew was that one day he was there, and then he wasn't. Gone. No explanation. No would-be. No letter. Or so everyone thought. Tom, Walter's voice pulled me back. I'm here. I think you should come to Willow Creek. I looked out across the fields. The same fields my father worked. The same fields where I'd learned to drive an old Ford pickup. A lifetime of memories sat between me and that little town. Tomorrow. I thought about it for all of 3 seconds. Okay, good. Walter paused. Then he added quietly, I think there are some things you've never been told. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my grandfather, about a letter waiting 45 years, about all the questions I'd carried most of my life. Around midnight, I climbed into the attic. Dust floated through the beam of a flashlight. Old boxes lined the walls. Pieces of forgotten history. Eventually, I found the family photo albums. The leather cover cracked as I opened it. Page after page of memories. Birthdays, Christmas mornings, county fairs. Then I saw him, Grandpa Samuel, standing beside an old pickup truck, smiling. Not the face of a villain. Not the face of a man who abandoned everyone. Just a regular man, a farmer, a husband, a father. I stared at that picture for a long time, trying to understand the stranger whose blood ran through my veins. Then something slipped from behind the photograph. A folded newspaper clipping, yellow with age. I carefully opened it, and what I read changed everything. The headline was simple, Local Farmer Missing. Underneath was my grandfather's picture. The article was dated June 1979. According to the report, Samuel Walker had vanished without warning. No note, no explanation, no evidence of where he'd gone. Authorities searched nearby towns. Neighbors organized volunteer searches. Nothing. The article ended with a sentence that chilled me. Family members remain hopeful that Samuel Walker will return home safely. But he never did. At least, not officially. I read the article 3 times. Something didn't feel right. If Grandpa had written a letter, then maybe he hadn't disappeared willingly. Maybe the story I'd been told wasn't true, and somewhere back in Willow Creek, an old postmaster had been holding the answers for nearly half a century. The next morning, I left before sunrise. The drive to Willow Creek took a little over 3 hours. The farther I traveled, the more familiar everything became. Endless fields, weather barns, water towers rising above tiny towns. The kind of America you don't see much anymore. Back when every town had its own diner, barber shop, and hardware store. Back when folks knew their neighbors by name. By the time I reached Willow Creek, the clouds had cleared. Main Street looked smaller than I remembered. Funny how that happens. Places that seemed enormous as a kid somehow shrink when you grow older. The diner was still there. So was the church. Even the old movie theater still stood at the end of the block, though its doors had been closed for years. And there, on the corner of May and Jefferson, stood the post office. The same red brick building I remembered from childhood. For a moment, I just sat in my truck, staring, feeling like I'd driven straight into the past. Then I stepped out and walked inside. The little bell above the door chimed as I entered. The smell hit me first. Paper, dust, old wood. It was exactly the way I remembered. Behind the counter stood Walter Jenkins. He looked older than I expected. Thinner, his hair completely white, but his eyes were sharp. The same eyes that had handed out mail to half the town for decades. Tom Walker. He smiled. Good to see you again. You too, Walter. We shook hands. His grip was firm despite his age. Can't believe this place hasn't changed. Walter laughed. Neither can the government. That earned a chuckle from both of us. Then his smile faded. I suppose you're here for the letter. I nodded. Every mile of the drive suddenly felt worth it. Walter glanced toward a back room. It's back there. For the first time, I noticed something in his expression. Not excitement, not relief. Something heavier, like he'd been carrying a burden for a very long time. Walter led me through a narrow doorway into a small office. A metal filing cabinet stood against one wall. An old desk occupied the center of the room. The place looked frozen in time. Walter walked to the cabinet. For a moment, he simply stared at it. Then he pulled open the bottom drawer. Slowly, carefully, almost respectfully. From inside, he removed a small wooden box. The wood was worn smooth from age. My heart began to pound. Walter carried the box to the desk and set it down between us. There it is. I swallowed hard. The room suddenly felt warmer. Smaller. More serious. 45 years. 45 years this box had been waiting. 45 years of unanswered questions. Walter lifted the lid. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed with age, the edges worn, but still intact. I immediately recognized the handwriting. I'd seen it once before, on the newspaper clipping in my attic. Samuel Walker, my grandfather. The envelope wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to my grandmother, Mary Walker. My chest tightened. She had passed away nearly 20 years earlier. Whatever message Grandpa intended for her had never arrived. Walter noticed me staring. That's why I kept it. I looked up. What do you mean? He sat down heavily in the chair. I was a young postal clerk back then. His eyes drifted toward the envelope. The letter arrived 2 days after your family moved to another county. What happened? Walter sighed. Human error. I frowned. A sorting mistake. The words seemed too small, too simple. A sorting mistake had delayed a letter for 45 years? Walter nodded as if reading my thoughts. It got misplaced. I couldn't believe it. One mistake. One tiny mistake. And an entire family's history changed forever. Walter leaned forward. By the time we found it, your grandmother had already passed away. I looked back at the envelope. My grandfather's handwriting seemed almost alive, as though he had written it yesterday. I wanted to throw it away dozens of times. Walter's voice softened, but I couldn't. Why not? He smiled sadly, because every time I looked at it, I thought about what might be inside. The room fell silent. Outside, I could hear cars moving along Main Street. Life continuing, just as it had for decades. Walter pushed the envelope toward me. This belongs to your family. I stared at it. 45 years. One unopened letter. One final message from a man nobody understood. Slowly, I reached for it, and for the first time in nearly half a century, the seal was about to be broken. My hands trembled as I picked up the envelope. For a moment, I just stared at it. The paper felt fragile, like it had been waiting all these years for this exact moment. Walter sat quietly across from me. Neither of us spoke. There are some moments in life that deserve silence. This was one of them. Carefully, I slid a finger beneath the seal. The paper crackled. Then it opened. Inside was a single folded letter. 3 pages, written entirely in my grandfather's neat handwriting. I unfolded the first page. At the very top, it read, June 14th, 1979. My throat tightened. The words below were addressed to my grandmother. But somehow, after all these years, they felt meant for me too. I took a deep breath and began reading. Mary, if you're reading this, then things didn't go the way I hoped. I know you're probably angry, and Lord knows you've earned that right. But before anyone judges me, I need you to know the truth. I stopped. My eyes moved to Walter. He simply nodded. Keep reading. I looked back down. For years, I've carried a burden I never knew how to share. Every season got harder. Every harvest brought more debt. Every month, I fell further behind. I smiled in front of the family because that's what a husband and father was supposed to do. But inside, I was scared. I swallowed hard. Back then, farmers didn't talk much about their struggles. Most men simply carried the weight alone. My father had been exactly the same way. Maybe that's where he learned it. I continued reading. The bank is preparing to take the farm. I've fought as long as I can. I've sold equipment. I've borrowed money. I've worked every hour God gave me. But it's not enough. My heart sank. The farm. The same farm my family had talked about for years. Nobody ever mentioned debt. Nobody ever mentioned losing it. The letter continued. I couldn't stand the thought of watching our family lose everything. So I made a choice. My eyes narrowed. A choice? Tomorrow I'm leaving town. Not because I don't love you. Not because I don't love our children. Because I do. I'm leaving because I've been offered work in Colorado. Good work. Enough work that I might finally pay off what we owe. I stared at the page. My grandfather hadn't abandoned his family. He had left trying to save them. The next paragraph hit even harder. Please don't tell Tommy I left because of him. My breath caught. Tommy, that was me. Tell him I loved fishing with him. Tell him I loved watching him chase baseballs behind the church. Tell him he made me proud every single day. My vision blurred. I hadn't expected that. Not after a lifetime of hearing only negative things about him. I kept reading. If things work out, I'll come home. If they don't, at least you'll know I tried. That's all I've ever done, Mary. I've tried. The words felt painfully human. Not perfect, not heroic, just human. A man trying to keep his family afloat. A man who made difficult choices. A man who loved his family more than anyone realized. Then I reached the final page, and everything changed. There's one more thing you need to know. The doctors found something in my lungs last month. They don't think I have much time. I froze. Walter looked up. What is it? I couldn't answer immediately. I continued reading. I didn't tell anyone because I couldn't bear watching my family worry. The Colorado job may not save the farm, and it may not save me. But if I have any strength left, I want to spend it trying. My chest felt tight. The room suddenly seemed very small. The final lines were written shakily, as though his hands had been trembling. Please forgive me. Tell my children I love them. Tell Tommy his grandpa never stop thinking about him. And if God gives me the chance, I'll find my way home. Love always, Samuel. The room fell silent. I slowly lowered the letter. For 70 years, I believe my grandfather had abandoned us. For 70 years, my family believed he simply walked away. But the truth was far more complicated, far more heartbreaking. And for 45 years, that truth had been trapped inside an envelope waiting to be heard. For several minutes, neither Walter nor I spoke. The only sound in the room was the faint ticking of an old clock hanging above the filing cabinet. I looked down at the letter again. 70 years old, and somehow I felt like a little boy. The same little boy who used to sit on Grandpa Samuel's shoulders during the 4th of July parade. The same boy who spent summers catching bluegill at Miller's Pond. Memories I hadn't thought about in decades suddenly came rushing back. That's not possible, I finally whispered. Walter folded his hands. I know. No, I mean, I struggled to find words. If he was leaving to help the family, why did nobody know? Walter looked away. His expression told me there was more. Much more. The kind of look a man carries when he's been keeping something locked away for years. Then he sighed, because that letter wasn't the only thing that got lost. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? Walter rubbed his forehead. The old postmaster suddenly looked every bit of his 83 years. There was another letter. The room went completely still. Another letter? Walter nodded slowly. One that came about 8 months later. I stared at him, my pulse quickening. From Samuel? Yes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. For decades, everyone assumed Grandpa disappeared. Yet apparently he'd written again. Where is it? Walter shook his head. I don't have it. My heart sank. What happened to it? Walter leaned back in his chair. That winter was rough. Worst snowstorm I'd seen in years. I remembered it. Everybody in town talked about the blizzard of 1980. Roads closed for days. Power outages. Farmers trapped in their homes. Walter continued. The mail truck carrying that letter never made it to Willow Creek. I frowned. What do you mean? The truck slid off an icy road about 20 miles north of town. I stared at him. No kidding. No kidding. The driver survived. Most of the mail didn't. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The idea felt impossible. An entire family's future changed by snow, ice, and bad luck. Walter opened one of the desk drawers. From inside, he removed a small notebook. The cover was worn and faded. I kept records. He slid it toward me. I opened it carefully. Inside were handwritten notes, dates, addresses, tracking information. And then I saw it. Walker, Mary. Incoming letter. February 1980. My chest tightened. It was real. The second letter had existed. For years, I'd assumed Grandpa vanished without a trace. Now I knew he'd tried reaching home twice. Twice. And neither message arrived. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I looked up. Did anybody ever know about this? Walter shook his head. No, not even my father. No. I leaned back in my chair, trying to process everything. The truth I'd believed my entire life was slowly unraveling. And we weren't done yet. What happened after that? I asked quietly. Walter swallowed. He sounded disappointed. The old postmaster paused, then added, but not surprised. I frowned. What does that mean? Walter returned to the desk. Slowly, carefully, like a man walking through old memories. He told me something I've never forgotten. I leaned forward, every nerve in my body suddenly alert. Walter looked me straight in the eye and repeated the words exactly as he remembered them. Sometimes life decides your story before you get a chance to tell it. The sentence landed hard, because that's exactly what had happened. My grandfather's story had been written by rumors, by assumptions, by missing letters, by silence, not by truth. Walter reached into another drawer, for the second time that day, and what he pulled out made my heart stop. A faded black and white photograph. There were two men standing together. One was Walter, the other was Samuel Walker, my grandfather, and written on the back were 6 words that changed everything. If I don't return, tell Tommy. My hand shook as I took the photograph. The edges were worn, the image slightly faded, but there was no mistaking the man standing beside Walter. It was Grandpa Samuel, older than the picture I'd found in the attic. Thinner, too. His smile looked tired, like life had been asking more from him than he had left to give. I turned the photograph over again. The handwriting matched the letter perfectly. If I don't return, tell Tommy. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. All those years, all those birthdays, all those Christmas mornings, and somehow my grandfather had still been thinking about me. Why didn't you tell me? I asked quietly. Walter lowered his eyes. I made a promise. The answer surprised me. A promise. He asked me not to say anything unless I knew for certain what happened to him. I frowned. And did you? Walter slowly shook his head. No. Walter sat back down. The summer he called, he told me he was working near Grand Junction, Colorado. The name meant nothing to me, but Walter remembered every detail. He sounded weak. My stomach tightened. The illness. The lung disease he'd mentioned in the letter. Walter nodded as if reading my thoughts. I could hear it in his voice. Outside, The afternoon sun reflected off the storefront windows on Main Street. Inside, the years seemed to disappear. He asked about your grandmother. I looked up. What did you tell him? The truth. Walter paused. I told him she still waited. My chest ached. I pictured Grandma sitting on her porch, watching cars pass, checking the mailbox, hoping, waiting, year after year. Walter sighed. He got quiet after that. Did he say why he never came home? Walter hesitated, then nodded. He said he was ashamed. Ashamed. The word hung in the room. Heavy, painful, human. He told me he never earned enough money to save the farm. Walter's voice softened. He felt like he failed everyone. I stared at the photograph. Grandpa had left trying to help, then got sick, then lost the farm anyway. And somewhere along the way, shame convinced him that coming home would only make things worse. Folks around here understood pride, especially men of his generation. Many would rather suffer in silence than admit defeat. Walter continued. He said every year that passed made it harder to come back. That made sense. 1 year becomes 2, 2 becomes 5, 5 becomes 20. Then suddenly half a lifetime is gone, and the distance feels impossible to cross. No kidding, I whispered. Walter nodded sadly. No kidding. Did he ever call again? Walter was silent for several seconds. Then he reached into his shirt pocket, carefully, slowly, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. My heart immediately started pounding. I received one final phone call. The room felt smaller, warmer, more serious. It was 1982. I swallowed hard. 2 years later, Walter nodded. He sounded very weak. I could already guess why. The illness. The one he tried to hide from everyone. Walter unfolded the paper. I wrote down what he said after we hung up. His voice became almost a whisper. Walter, if anybody ever asks about me. Walter stopped, his eyes glistening. Tell them I never stopped loving my family. The words hit me harder than I expected, because love had always been missing from a story I'd been told. The man I'd heard about was selfish, careless, akite, but the man in the letters sounded completely different. The sun was beginning to set when Walter stood and walked toward a shelf in the corner. There, tucked between old postal records and dusty ledgers, sat a small cardboard box. Walter picked it up, carefully, almost reverently. Then he placed it in front of me. What's this? His expression softened. Something arrived 3 months ago. I frowned. 3 months ago? Walter nodded. From Colorado. My pulse quickened. Colorado. The place Grandpa had disappeared to. The place where his trail ended. Walter slowly opened the lid. Inside was a worn leather journal, a pocket watch, and a sealed envelope. The envelope was addressed to only one person. Thomas Walker. My name, written in the same handwriting as the letter. The same handwriting I'd waited 70 years to understand. I stared at it, unable to move, unable to speak, because somehow, after all this time, my grandfather still had one more story left to tell. For a long moment, I simply stared at the envelope. My name, written in my grandfather's hand. It felt impossible. The man had been gone for more than 4 decades. Yet here he was again, reaching across time. Walter quietly pushed the box closer. I think it's time. I nodded. Slowly, I picked up the envelope. The paper was worn, but still sealed. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single folded letter, shorter than the first one, but somehow it felt heavier, more personal. At the top were just 3 words. For Tommy only. My throat tightened. Nobody had called me Tommy in years. Not since Grandma passed. Not since the old days in Willow Creek. Back when summers felt endless and life moved a little slower. I unfolded the page and began reading. Tommy, if you're reading this, then Walter finally found a way to get this to you. I hope you're an old man by now. A laugh escaped me through the tears gathering in my eyes. Trust Grandpa to start with a joke. The letter continued. The last time I saw you, you were chasing a baseball behind the church. You couldn't throw straight to save your life. I smiled. I remembered. I've been 8 years old, missing catches, tripping over my own feet, thinking I was going to play for the Yankees someday. I wish I'd gotten to watch you grow up. That's the regret I carry every day. The words hit hard, because all my life I'd thought he chose not to be there. Now I knew the truth. He wanted to stay. Life simply got in the way. I continued reading. Tommy, there are two things every man learns eventually. First, nobody gets everything right. Second, love matters more than pride. I looked out the office window. The sun was setting over Willow Creek. Golden light stretched across Main Street. The same street where I'd ridden my bicycle as a kid. The same street where Grandpa had walked decades earlier. The letter continued. I let my pride keep me away too long. I thought coming home without success would disappoint everyone. Now I know being present matters more than being perfect. I closed my eyes. Those words weren't just about him. They were about all of us. About fathers, sons, families. The mistakes people make when they think they have more time than they really do. Near the bottom of the page, Grandpa had written one final message. If your grandmother is still around, tell her I loved her every single day. I swallowed hard. Grandma was gone, but somehow I felt like she already knew. If your father is still around, tell him I'm sorry. Dad had passed away 15 years earlier. Another message that arrived too late. Then came the final paragraph. And Tommy, don't spend your life looking backward. The good Lord gave us memories so we can appreciate the past. But He gave us tomorrow so we can keep moving forward. Be kind. Forgive quickly. Call the people you love. And don't wait 45 years to tell someone how much they matter. I couldn't stop the tears anymore. Neither could Walter. The drive home felt different. The fields looked different. Even the skies seemed different. Not because anything had changed, but because I had. For most of my life, I carried a story that wasn't true. I believed my grandfather abandoned us. The truth was far more human. He was a man who struggled, a man who got sick, a man who made mistakes, a man who loved his family deeply, and a man whose voice got lost between missing letters, bad luck, and passing years. A week later, I returned to Willow Creek one last time. Walter retired that Friday. The whole town showed up. Farmers, teachers, old friends, people he'd served for decades. Before I left, I placed a copy of Grandpa's letter inside a frame and donated it to the town museum. Not because Samuel Walker was famous. He wasn't. But because his story mattered. It's a reminder that sometimes the truth takes a long time to arrive. And sometimes a letter can travel farther than any person ever could. As I walked out of the museum, I looked toward the old post office. The American flag waved gently above the roof. For the first time in 70 years, I felt something I never expected. Peace. Because Grandpa finally came home. Not in person, not in the way anyone imagined, but through the words he left behind. And after 45 years of waiting, his letter was finally delivered.